Hector, can I just finish up by saying thank you? That is a lovely phrase at the end there, which is to say, this is your home. In every way in which when we come here, we genuinely feel welcomed. Obviously, it's not exactly like a normal home because you don't always get to meet a central bank governor, the former head of the CIA, the guy who played Logan Roy. It's quite an interesting home you've got here. And the fact that you welcome us all in all seriousness, and give us the chance to listen to people in all those years that I've been coming, I always find that the conversations that I have here and the conversations that I listen to here, I remember for months and years to come, and it's like nothing else. And so thank you to you and to Anna too for hosting us all here. It really makes a big difference. Thank you very much. I do also want to say that I, like you, Hector, really don't do the work. And the work is actually done by Manolo and his team, and by Peter Greif, who spends months thinking about how we're going to get people together, and by Raquel and by Cecilia, who actually make sure the whole thing happens. So could I just say a big heartfelt thank you to you all too. Thank you. I'm going to finish just by saying there's been so much to hear and so many points that I've scribbled down in my notebook today, and some of them quite specific and some of them quite technical. But overall, I found myself over the course of the day coming back to a story which you may have heard about or read about in the summer. And it was a story about a woman who was on her lawnmower in Silsbee, Texas. I don't know whether you saw this. She was on her lawnmower, and literally out of the sky, a snake fell on her arm and wrapped around her arm and starts biting her. I don't know whether you saw this story. And just the moment where the snake is on her arm, the hawk that had been carrying the snake and hoping to eat the snake flies down and then starts trying to grab the snake off her arm. And it was one of those kind of horrific stories. How is it possible that a snake falls from the sky and then you get attacked by a hawk? If you go back and read the reporting of it, the thing that I particularly like about this story was that she's on a lawnmower. The next thing is that the husband, who turns out is also on his lawnmower, drives over and sees the woman and is shocked by what he sees. We never find out whether the husband gets off the lawnmower to help his wife, but he is shocked by what he sees. But the reason why that story kept coming back to me is you would be naive and you would be unreasonably optimistic to come away from this year's International Banking Conference without the sense of just a multitude of very profound challenges following one after the other. It would have been hard to have predicted last year that we would have still been thinking about Ukraine, and now with Israel-Hamas on the back of that. It's hard to think that on the back of COVID and the crisis we talked about for a couple of years, just the persistence of inflation and the cost of living has come fast on the back of that. And for years now, we've talked about climate change as one of those structural threats and, yes, opportunities, but now we're just beginning to grapple with AI. It's felt like one thing after another, one thing after another, one thing after another. And I think there's a truth about this year's conference, which is we've heard hard truths. You heard General Petraeus describe Israel's military undertaking in Gaza, an undertaking, he said, to which there was no alternative, as the most difficult military undertaking since the Second World War, since Stalingrad. You know, you heard the former UK Chancellor talk about the extent to which the US has pulled away from Europe and what needs to be done. You heard, in fact, I thought really interestingly, a conversation about population and population growth in Europe and the need for immigration and a change in the political conversation around really fundamental things. And it would be quite easy, I think, to step away from this day and think that is an overwhelming catalogue of challenges. But the reason that I would personally walk away with what I think Francesco Staracci described as a need for both zest and adjustment is that actually there was an incredible sense, I found, of self-belief, particularly here in Europe, and a sense of the opportunity in Europe. And I also thought that the framing of the day, competing for growth, and in particular the idea of competition and growth, forced us to think about something very fundamental about the way in which we consider the running of the European economy in particular and the role of regulation. And Hector, just at the end there, you made that point about regulation that is going to drive growth. To my mind, that's the fundamental idea, if you like, the fundamental two things that I take away, which is how do you move from a regulation that, if you like, was forged by a fear of risk in the shadow of the global financial crisis, to a regulation that now looks at a global competition for growth and is therefore focused on innovation and capital. It feels to me as though that is the fundamental challenge that arises from the conversations and the thread that runs through them. No small undertaking, but no bad thing to go into it with the self-confidence and self-belief that we've heard today. So that's the way I try and put together the things that I've heard. I'm sure you will have taken away different things. One final thing to say, which is something has happened to time. It feels like we don't have enough of it, and it's racing away from us. And the fact that everyone here makes the time, once again, to be here, to come in person or watch and listen to these conversations online, really means a huge amount to everyone who takes part and puts this together. So a big and heartfelt thank you to you for coming and being here. And as Logan Roy would probably never say, thank you very much and look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you. Oh, I didn't include Barbara.